Don't you realize? Our parents, they want the best of stuff for us. It's our time.
I so much want your understanding. I want your respect.
Oh, come on. It can't be that bad. I'll do it with you.
Okay, potato chips, other salty snacks.
Good advice. That doctor obviously knows what he's talking about.
Butter, heavy cream, cheese.
Gone? Makes a lot of sense.
Alcoholic beverages.
Okay, that doctor's a quack.
I knew the food would be bad.
Sorry. You're unusually limber this morning. I'll say.
And then we practiced high kicks. Watch. You!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Melt Off Podcast. I am Urza Master. Joining me today, Lord Uther. Welcome back, sir.
Hello, hello.
Glad to have you. And we are on our 13th episode of the Melt Off Podcast. Again, on our weight loss journeys, life-changing journeys, health journeys to better longevity, better health, joints that don't hurt in our old age, and so on and so forth. We'll start off, as we start off with many of our episodes, with just some quick check-ins. Myself, weight-wise, I'm up a little bit over the past couple of weeks. I've come back down some. I'm sitting at about 255. I think last episode is at 251, so 4 pounds, really not a lot, but after bariatric, a couple of pounds can be indicative of some things that need to change. So back on the horse with working out, building that journey back. How about you, Lord Uther? How are things going with you?
Yeah, besides a bunch of insurance issues, which I don't, because I can't remember where we were at last episode, if I had even talked about that, but I'm having to pay for the Zepbound out of pocket, which again, that's a whole fiasco. But I'm down 30. So when this all started, I was 252. Again, last episode that we had done, I can't remember where I was at. I think I might have been in the 230s at that point, and now I'm down to 222. So awesome. I can finally fit into an extra large T-shirt. I don't know the last time. Maybe it was 2005 when I was in an extra large last time. It's been double XLs. I was even close to being in triple XLs at one point. A lot of the belly fat has been going away, which when I had intermittent fasted before, I didn't see as much of a belly fat loss as I have since being on the Zepbound. And then I actually just read an article that they had done some research that Zepbound helps with inflammation in the body, and they're seeing results in terms of even with the heart. So reducing inflammation throughout the body and actually within the heart itself. So I've been a little nervous about being on something like this because I hear about all the side effects. Again, knock on wood, I have not had any side effects. I haven't had any gastrointestinal issues, nothing like that. So that's been another positive piece. The question is that I'm trying to figure out, how long am I going to stay on it? That's something I'll be talking to my doctor about. I think end of the month we're talking, like in a week and a half. We have a video conference scheduled to start having some of those discussions. I have not upped my prescription. I'm still at 2.5. I know you can get it all the way up to 15 if you want.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so again, my doctor didn't want me to go. She said if 2.5 is helping with your cravings and we're seeing the weight coming off still and it's helping you fast, no reason to move you up, because that's when you start having issues, is if you move up and you don't need to. Because moving up milligram-wise, it doesn't help you lose it any faster. It's got nothing to do with that. So that's kind of the misconception. Well, if I go on 15, I'll drop 30 pounds in a week or something like that. So that's not how it works. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to having my blood work done too. So I'm going to have that done end of March. So we'll see if my blood sugars have come down, which I'm assuming they have. My triglycerides, all that should be coming down. Now, last time I was at the doctor, my blood pressure was kind of high again, but I had been diagnosed with COVID, and I was taking a whole bunch of cough medicine that I probably shouldn't be taking.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, it's you're exhausted probably, and you're taking that cold medicine, so just monitor that. So I just got a blood pressure sleeve thing that I'm gonna start monitoring my blood pressure.
Yeah.
I just talked a lot, so
No, that's exactly what this is for. I mean, and there's definitely a lot of people out there on, Ozempic, Zepbound, drugs like that, you can see really great success, but you also run into those unforeseens. And that's where, I think it's great that your doctor's giving you that caution. And certainly with the cold medicine thing, that's really common, going in and seeing your blood pressure at a number, you're like, what? And, it's because you're on a stimulant medicine that's suppressing your cough or helping you sleep or whatever. You're taking enough of that stuff it takes a while to cycle through you. So like if you're also sick with COVID, it makes perfect sense you're going to have elevated blood pressure. I don't remember if last time I'd had my iron infusion or if
you had not. You were going in for it.
Okay, so yeah, I had my iron infusion, and it's very common after bariatric to have issues with macro or micronutrients. Iron was my unfortunate one. It went fine. They did the IV in my hand. This is the first time ever I've had an IV go in so easily. I don't know if because the nurse I saw was an infusion specialist nurse, because normally I get the trainee or the nurse who just transferred departments that needs to learn how to do an IV for the ER or whatever. So I've had some issues. Like I told her front and center, I'm like, I tend to pass out or nearly pass out or freak out. I'm like, I'm just letting you know. She's like, let's put your feet up, make you comfortable. And I'm like, I have a weird vein in my elbow that goes like straight across. I'm like, probably don't do it there. And she's like, well, you have this big old vein right here. And I'm a little dehydrated this morning, but you could see it plain as day. And it was just bulging. She's like, oh, this is a great vein. She's like, watch this. And it's like, bam, done. I'm like, holy crap. That was the best IV ever. Obviously it's never comfortable. It's, kind of like, it feels like you can't move your hand because it'll pinch. But she didn't have to hang a bag. She ended up doing a push, and I made the amazing dad joke the next day that like that infusion was the most metal infusion of all time. But literally, it was black. The stuff that they had to infuse me with, it was black medicine because of the iron content. Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's black or a rust color. Mine was like Lady Gaga black perfume, which they don't make anymore, and I'm so sad about that because I bought it for my wife and it was the best. But it was cool to see because she just, over the course of about 10 minutes, just slowly pushed it in through the IV, and then they monitor you for about a half hour to make sure you don't go into anaphylaxis or have any kind of weird side effects. Like sometimes you can get sight redness or itching or a rash. Sometimes the rash can spread all over your body. You can get like weird itching because obviously you're pumping it through all your veins. I didn't have anything. I was a little sleepy, if anything. It was very quiet in that room. And it was interesting because several other patients came in, and it was one nurse running the show at this local kind of rural hospital I was at. And I got to see people going through infusion therapies or different type of infusions for various things. And there were a couple of port people who came in for like cleaning their ports because they're cancer patients. There's one guy there who's getting remdesivir because he had severe COVID, which I didn't realize. And they're like, you should probably wear a mask. I'm like, oh, okay. So I threw the mask on, and then I heard them talking about it. I'm like, oh boy, like, all right, well, that's why I'm wearing a mask. But that was a cool experience. I did notice a couple of days later the energy started to pick up again. I wouldn't say I'm 100% yet. I still end up drinking a lot of coffee. But I met with my nutritionist this week, and she's like, it's good that they got the infusion therapy because my ferritin was low. We double checked my vitamins to make sure I'm taking the right things. My B12 is high, so I'm going to discontinue. I've been taking 6,000 micrograms a day, which is an incredible amount of B12. I've noticed no impact from it. So I'm not reordering my 5,000 microgram. My standard multi comes with 1,000 micrograms of B12. So we'll see how that goes when I get my next blood draw. I think I'm out of the B12 now, or I have like a couple tabs left. So by the time I get my blood draw in here in a couple weeks, it probably will have cycled back down, I'm guessing. The other thing is that we checked the amount of iron that's in my daily, because some daily multivitamins, because they're very different. You have to really be cognizant of this as a bariatric. Like, I take Bariatric Advantage. It's kind of basically made for this Roux-en-Y surgery that I had. It has 45 milligrams of iron, which, like, the standard daily dose for men who are just normal is 10 milligrams. So men need less than women. Women typically need a lot more. It's very hard to absorb, even just for regular folks who have a duodenum and all that is intact. It's hard for regular folks to get their iron in. So for me, it's just that much harder. 45 milligrams, though, is supposedly probably enough. So we'll kind of have to monitor that going forward and just see. But I'm hoping that this lasts going forward, because it has been nice not having like the urge to go to bed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and not drinking 2 pots of coffee a day to stay awake. I've been able to significantly cut back my caffeine intake to like 3, maybe 4 cups of coffee, which isn't too bad. All things considered. Actually, today I haven't had any hot coffee. I've just had my one Boss, which, it's Sunday. I treat myself. Shout out to Suntory and the Japanese for that wonderful product. But interesting thing happened this week. I not only have I been back to getting back to working out, I should say. I'm not to my workout routine of 60 minutes a day every day, which I want to be at. I'm probably closer to 30-ish on average. Mostly weightlifting. I haven't done any cardio yet, which I really need to do, because that's where the weight really starts to drop. But it was Valentine's Day this week, and 10 years ago, I proposed to my wife on Valentine's Day, Goonie Mama, who will be joining us in future episodes. So we went out for a very nice dinner. Mother-in-law and her husband watched the kids for us for the evening, and that was cool. And I'm at the place now where like I can eat most things, and I don't have too much trouble, but I have to be cognizant of my portions, because 1, I don't want to stretch my pouch out, and 2, if I do accidentally eat too much, it becomes extremely uncomfortable in a big hurry. And that happens whether I eat too much, whether I eat too fast. Certain things you don't notice it as much, but it definitely happens. And I don't know where the bravado came from, but we went to a very nice restaurant, like the only one in town here. It was the first time either of us had been there, and it was nice. They had a wood fire grill. It smelled nice. We sat by the bar because they were booked up with reservations, of course, but the bar was immediate seating. And, I don't drink anymore, so Becky ordered a drink, and we're sitting there, and I'm sipping on some water, which, don't do it, bariatric patients. You can't drink 30 minutes before a meal. Luckily, the food took long enough that I think I was okay. And we started with this interesting pretzel bread bowl, which I thought was going to be, like, big. But it was like a hamburger bun-sized bread bowl made of pretzel, stuffed with like a French onion dip for vegetables with melted cheese on top, and then it came with carrots and celery. I love carrots and celery. Love it. So without even realizing, because when you're eating vegetables, you like have that mental trigger of like, it's good food, like I'm not going to have to worry about eating this. Not so when your stomach is the size, roughly speaking, of an egg, or probably a little bigger now. So I ate probably 4 carrot sticks and 4 celery sticks, and then a little bit of the cheese and like 1 bite of the pretzel thing, because that was basically Becky's meal. because she ordered a lava cake. She's like, F it, it's it's Valentine's Day. I'm gonna treat yourself. I ordered barramundi, which I have not seen on a menu ever before. Certainly not around here. I don't know where they got the fish from, but I was very excited. It was wood-fired, skin on, crispy with a nice drizzle of some kind of a sweet garlic glaze, I think. And it came with glazed organic carrots and a beer cheese cavatappi, which, I mean, the flavors were just amazing. But I ate the carrots first because they were great and Becky wanted them, so she ate most of them. I had 2 of my 6 carrots, which she was going to order a side of carrots. They wanted $7 for 6 of these little glazed carrots. I'm like,
Just bring your own in next time for $7. Wow.
Right, no kidding. I'm like, I mean, they were great. Don't get me wrong. This was very well done food. I didn't mind paying, and it's Valentine's Day, so I don't mind paying a little extra. You know, we don't go out to eat very often anyway, especially not just the 2 of us, so we'd never go out with the kids, because a family of 5 eating at any restaurant is a good $100, even at Perkins. So, you know, I get into my first bite of fish, and it's a little hot. Like, it had just come off the grill hot. So I was like, ooh, like, I had to, like, chew and swallow really fast. So I didn't chew enough. I swallowed a bit too much at once. And immediately I was like, oh, shit, I'm full. I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, no. Like, I don't, no. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to wait, you know, give it some time to settle. I probably just swallowed too big of a bite. And then it kind of like, you know, sort of went away. And I took a couple bites of the cavatappi, and it was perfect al dente. That beer cheese was just like, oh, just singing in my mouth.
Fantastic.
Oh, so good. And then I took another bite of the fish, a smaller bite, and then I took another small bite, and I was like, I'm done. I feel like I have to vomit. Like, I ate too much too fast. And it was definitely not too fast. Like, I probably spent half an hour-ish taking, like, I don't know, how many bites was that? 6, 7 bites total.
Right.
And I don't know if I just didn't chew very well or what the case was, but I literally, for the rest of the time Becky was eating until we got home, felt like I was going to have to rush to the restroom and vomit, because, like, I felt I was in pain. Like, it was bad. And this hadn't happened in a long time. And it dawned on me that I'd eaten all this celery. And, like, first of all, celery is basically nothing. There's nothing to it but, like, fiber and water.
Yeah.
It's actually negative calories to eat celery because there's virtually nothing to it. And when you're a bariatric patient, like, you just don't eat this stuff. Like, there is no value in it. Don't eat it. You're already getting all your vitamins and minerals elsewhere. Focus on your proteins. And then, you know, you do want to get vegetables in because you want to eat, you know, healthy. But, like, you need the protein, you need the fat, you need to be able to, you know, absorb some of those vitamins because some are fat soluble. So you need a certain amount of that. You need the calcium, you need vitamin D, so you got to drink milk. You got to do all these things, right? Well, I foolishly ate carrots and celery. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, of course I don't feel good. I have this knot of fiber in my pouch that all this other stuff is trying to push down and through. And sure enough, here we go. Here's the poop discussion. Sure enough, the ensuing 2 days, it was passing not just noxious gas, but, like, passing some significant bowel movements. And luckily, I brought it home as leftovers. It did reheat fine. So I got 2 meals out of a relatively expensive meal. I want to say it was like $24, which really isn't too bad for, like, a nice restaurant, especially, you know, when it's the only one in town. So, you know, in all, it was a good Valentine's Day. But that's an entertaining for us, you know, Ruin Y folks, or even the gastric sleeve folks. Like, y'all know what I'm talking about when you eat a little too fast, you don't chew quite too much. Should I have thrown up? Probably. Did I? I did not. I definitely had to temper it. Oh, go ahead.
Didn't mean to talk over you. I apologize.
Oh, you're good.
Does fiber, so do you try to avoid that when you had the bariatric surgery? Should you be avoiding fiber because it makes your stomach upset? Are you supposed to be taking that in? Are you supposed to be focusing more on your proteins? Like what's the balance look like? Because that's where it's different for me, right? I can kind of eat anything. I just get the full feeling where I might not have the same reaction as you will depending on what you eat.
Yeah, that's a great question, and certainly something in all of the bariatric education you go through. Like, you have to really relearn how to eat. You're eating for fuel, so like you need to get in your proteins. You need to get in your fats. Not exactly keto, but it's similar idea. But you also want to focus on, like they tell you, like you want to get protein in first, and then vegetables, and then if you have room, you eat a little bit of carbohydrates. And like, you're not restricted from eating. You should still eat the things that make you feel complete as a person.
Right.
You literally can only take in a certain quantity, so you want to make sure of that quantity you're focusing heavily on what your body needs. You don't need to avoid fiber. It's just certain fibrous foods are hard to digest. Celery is a big one. A lot of people have trouble with broccoli or cauliflower. High fiber foods in general are just tough because they don't break down very easily, and you got to remember your pouch, your new stomach is just connected to intestine. So like the fiber, if it builds up, it sits there like a rock, and it's hard to get that pushed through without a lot of water, and you can't drink for like 30 minutes or you'll stretch your pouch. And then if you start to drink the water, it pushes that fiber through, and then that fiber ball, it's great for your insides because it's going to eventually push all that,
Right.
shall we say, doo-doo out.
Yeah.
The problem is if you eat a good amount of fiber, you're going to feel pretty bound up. It's hard to get in enough water in a day as it is. So then when you do finally have your next bowel movement, which taking iron and vitamins can bind you up anyway, you are very likely to start pushing out some significant volumes. And that's certainly, like, it's very common. I have this issue of, like, you might go every other day, which is still technically regular, but now you're going in quantities that, like, there are times where I wake up and I know I have to eat, but I'm not hungry. And I'm like, this is weird. Why do I not feel hungry? Because I should. And then I have my very modest breakfast because, like, look, I know I need to eat, especially for my vitamins. I need to eat something with them or I'll
Right.
feel sick. An hour later, it's like, uh-oh, I gotta go. And it's not like a diarrhea I have to go. It's like, it's pressure. Like, I know I have to pass a bowel movement.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like, post movement, you feel like you're empty on the inside. Like, so much came out of you that, like, holy cow, now I'm really hungry. Because all that stuff has just kind of been backing up in the truest sense of the word. Like, you just have less digestive system doing stuff. So it's a weird, like, you really get a weird in tune with your body after surgery. Like, I'm still getting used to it and getting used to all the nuance of how food makes me feel. It's kind of like when I was diabetic, if you ate something and it spiked your blood sugar, like, you started to get to know those feelings. And one of the weird things I think I've talked about on the show before is, like, from being diabetic and knowing what high blood sugar feels like, you also now, after bariatric, not being diabetic, you get the flip side of, now I know what it feels like to be hypoglycemic and have, like, acute low blood sugar attacks. Doesn't happen often. Like, I found that protein really regulates that pretty well, but I had it happen Friday, actually. No, yesterday, about 10:30 in the morning. Like, I had eaten breakfast, I'd had my usual routine, and then all of a sudden, bam, I was, like, shaky hungry, and I'm like, all right, I gotta go eat my lunch now because my body's craving protein. And yeah, it's a weird dynamic.
You talk about like a pouch, which is now your stomach. So you can stretch that out. Like, that's a danger of that happening to the point that it could be what, like, how large, like, back to its original size. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
I
But
don't know that it ever quite get that large, but it would get to the point where you've defeated the purpose.
will that give you digestive issues again if you do that as well?
Oh yeah, I don't. I guess I don't know. I've never asked that question. I'm really hoping, one, I haven't already done it, and two, I hope I never do it because I don't want to have that happen. But it's not like your stomach is meant, like the tissues are meant to stretch.
Right.
The problem is when you've basically cut away the bulk of that tissue and you're left with smaller tissues, you don't have as much to stretch. So like one of the way, like you really have to work at stretching that tissue out over months and months, probably years. You'd have to overeat to the point of pain probably every time. And that's something that, like, unless you're a truly compulsive eater, which it does happen. I mean, that's a thing, a food addiction.
Oh yeah.
It's probably very tough to do, but it's not to say it's not doable. It's definitely like a caution they give you is like, while the surgery is permanent and irreversible, you can kind of undo the benefits by, eating too much. It's very hard to do. It would have to be done repeatedly over extended periods. But, if you're not being mindful of drinking fluids, in advance of eating and then waiting to drink after eating, like like stretching your stomach with water, that's how competitive eaters do it. Water and cabbage, basically. So you have to be mindful of like those things that can sit in your pouch and stretch it out. One, it's very painful. Like you kind of know when you've eaten something like that, and you have to wait for it to pass to be able to like kind of get in the stuff that you need to get in. It's a feeling you get, and it's very odd and jarring. Like the first time you feel like you've kind of stretched your pouch, one, it's going to be extraordinarily painful. Two, it's going to be something that's long time uncomfortable. Like even after stuff passes and moves into your intestine to digest further, you still feel like I don't even know how to, like that after buffet feeling where you're not really in pain, but you're just uncomfortable.
Right.
You're just like, ugh, like I feel bloated. The other side to that is like you do have to get a lot of water in, and one of the ways you lose the weight so quickly is you're drinking so much water that you're just not eating much because
right.
you just can't. Because you have to get in, 64 to 90 ounces or more per day. And that's actually been my struggle lately is I'm not properly hydrating because I've been drinking lots of fluid, but it's been caffeinated. And when you drink the caffeine, you need more water to process it. So you have to get in. It doesn't have to necessarily be plain water. It could be milk, it could be juice. But you have to get in so much liquid per day, to stay hydrated, I guess.
Right.
But that's been my struggle, and that's probably a portion of why my energy levels have been lower. Is I'm simply dehydrated, and you can see it in your hands, and I'm actually not too bad right now because I focused on hydration a lot yesterday. But you'll notice the dip by your thumb. Like before, when I had Michelin Man body, it was real humped. Like almost like to the point of like, do I have arthritis or is it just like, am I retaining water because of salt? Which probably a little bit of the salt. But when I'm really dehydrated, this sort of like depresses and really scoops out to where it's like, okay, that doesn't look right. Like when you notice stuff like that, you're really dehydrated. But
sure.
You also get weird things like retaining water. So like I notice in my chin, today's not so bad, but it tends to puff out a little bit like Boss Nass in Star Trek or Star Wars. And I get like that double chin look, which, I mean, I have a little bit of it just from like skin and fat reserve still. But like, it's looking pretty good today. I'm feeling myself right now.
Great.
But, I've noticed on days where, if I've gone a string of days and not hydrated well, I tend to look a little poofier. And that's water retention. I carry it in my belly too. Like today's not so bad. I'm a little bit. It's probably a poop day. Like you get a little bloated from that. But yeah, it's the body changes are. I'm a year out now. In 2 days, it'll be a full year.
Oh, okay.
day to surgery, and it's like you go through a lot of changes, and it's amazing. Not just like the physical appearance, but like the knowing these things about your body. Like before I started this journey, like I only knew if I drank too much beer or ate too much Chinese food. Like that's it. Like I had no idea why I was like having emergency diarrhea all the time. You just didn't know.
Right.
Blood pressure, I mean, is the other weird one. Is like my blood pressure's never been better. And when I went in for my infusion, it was like a really good blood pressure. And I like even brought it up to the nurse. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I drank like 2 pots of coffee today. She's like, wow, and your blood pressure is that? She's like, you might even have low blood pressure.
Oh.
And that could occasionally be the thing, or it's just getting to the point where it's like really solidly in the normal range versus, kind of the high end of normal, which is where mine tends to sit, like in the 130 over 80-ish.
Me too. Yeah.
So 134 over 80 is kind of 134 over 79, I think, is where I usually fall, which isn't too bad. When I wasn't drinking any caffeine, it was even better. But a lot of people go back to caffeine because we need our coffee. I had 3 kids and 4 dogs and a full-time job and podcasts, and it's hard. It's just, and it's coffee's an experience. Like I really treat it as more of a, it's like a spiritual thing almost. Like you waking up with Folgers in your cup is the best way, or what's the Maxwell House one? I walk around my house and quote Maxwell House all the time. Now I can't
I
think
only
of
know
it.
the Folgers one. Folgers in your cup.
Boy, I don't know. I don't know why I can't think of it. I just had to ask Alexa the other day what the catchphrase was, and it told me it was for Maxwell House. I'm like, of course it's Maxwell House. Like I grew up on that.
Good to the last drop.
Good to the last drop. There you go. No, there's another one that they used, and I can't think of it. But boy, I don't know how this devolved to thinking up catchphrases. But so I'm curious with the Zepbound and the intermittent fasting. Like, do you ever get the like intense like low sugar feelings where like you feel like you have to gobble up, a bunch of food or anything like that?
Happened to me for the first time the other day in class. My energy, was also lecturing all day, so I think that had something to do with it. It just drains it. Part of it's being older, but it drains a lot of energy when I'm talking and we're having discussions for 40 minutes. And so I was going into my 3rd class for that, and I could just tell I was confusing things. I was telling the students that this was the Eastern Front and this was the Western Front when it should have been switched around. And even my co-teacher was like, and he was trying to be really nice about it. He's like, I think those are the other way around. I'm like, oh yeah. And I could just tell like I was getting some brain fog. So I had some Sour Patch Kids on my desk, and in between class periods, I ate 2 small bags of them, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, let's do this.
Yeah.
So I could tell there was something going on. And again, I think having been sick for a couple days, I think there was a couple things that kind of played into that.
Oh, for sure.
But that's the only time it's really happened, was that day. But I could tell something was up. Like I said, low energy, brain fog, some confusion. Something was up, and I was like, I'm just gonna try some sugar. Let's see, and that corrected it.
Yeah, it's weird how that happens. When it really crashes hard, that's where like you feel like you're gonna have like crap your pants. Like I notice when mine really dips, I feel like I'm gonna fall asleep, and then I feel like shaky, and then I feel like I have to go sit on the toilet because it's just gonna evacuate, and I've very rarely been able to fight through it. Like I've tried a couple of times to just. Sometimes it happens late at night. I'm going to bed and I lay down and I'm just like, oh, I don't feel good. Like all of a sudden, like I just, and my blood pressure does drop. I mean, I've taken my BP and it's like super low, and it's like, whoa, that's not good.
Right.
And then you kind of worry about, and I tend to have a little anxiety around that anyway, of like sudden blood pressure changes and like, and when I was unhealthy, way overweight and on all these medications for cholesterol, blood pressure, I always thought I was having a heart attack. Like when
Yeah.
stuff like this would happen, I'd be like, all right, this is it. Like this is the Widowmaker. Thankfully I've had my heart looked at many times now, including a echo stress test before my surgery, and no blockage, no buildup. Actually, a pretty strong looking heart, all things considered. I'm like, I don't know how it's possible when you
Genetics,
ate
man.
like a dumpster for 30 years. Like,
Right. Yeah.
but I'm very lucky to have caught, most of my stuff, relatively speaking, early. I was diabetic from about 29 until I had the surgery a year ago, so that would have been 34. 5 years of being diabetic. Probably around the same of high cholesterol, 5 years or more, and then high blood pressure for around a year and a half, probably, to where it was actually having to be medicated. So to be off all that and back on a healthy, track is great. And for what you're doing, I think, those are the dividends you're going to see pay out. At 50, I'm only 35, so like I got a little extra time here. So, but it was probably more important for me, I think, to do something more radical because I really didn't have control, and that was the thing is like I think Zepbound and Ozempic for some people has given them opportunities to gain control, where they might not be, purely speaking, out of control of their intake. It wasn't a compulsion for me so much as it was a lack of awareness. I think that was, and I did Noom, and the whole mindful eating thing is a huge topic for them. And you still have to be mindful even after surgery, and I'm sure Ozempic, Zepbound, same thing. You have to be mindful.
Oh yeah.
But, for me, never did I ever feel full. Not once. I don't remember a time, unless I was in pain. You know what I mean? So like that, I ate too much of the buffet feeling is like the only time. If I
Right.
ate like a standard meal, or even like as a kid, an adult size meal, I'd still feel hungry. And some of that's like what we eat. We eat so many sugary things. Sugar actually triggers a response in your stomach to expand. That's why sugar can be very bad for you. If you eat really high sugar foods, like your stomach just expands and expands, and you feel hungry, or so you feel like you need to eat more. And for those who don't exercise self-control or have access to an abundance of, shall we say, high sugar bad food like fast food, or some of the fast food pizzas that are mass produced, like sugar and preservatives are like the number one ingredient. So you're taking in all this sort of like crap, and it's causing your stomach to expand to a point. It's not like a limitless thing, but you really get that double whammy of like, I didn't know when I was full. I couldn't recognize it. I had to use like social cues. And depending on who I was eating with, if I was eating with anybody, I might not have any idea. Like,
Right.
I told my doctor about this early on in the process. Like, the only time I've ever recognized truthfully that I was eating like too much food in one sitting, and I'll never forget this because it was the most self-aware moment I think I've ever had in my 20s, was I went to McDonald's before work one time, on my way to work, coming from, I went to college in River Falls, Wisconsin. I was coming to Eau Claire to work. And I had some time. I got there early enough on a Saturday that I, could stop and have some lunch beforehand. And I didn't really feel like Chinese. I didn't feel like Subway. So I was like, I'll go to McDonald's. I haven't had McDonald's in a while. And it was cheap. I was a college kid.
Right.
And it was that dollar menu time when stuff was still $1. And I remember, because I like, and you and I are similar in this, that we like to eat for the taste, right?
Oh.
So sometimes food combinations are a big thing. I love their sweet and sour sauce. I love the taste of chicken nuggets. I love the McDoubles. I love the chicken McChickens. And And I love the combination of all of those things together. So I got 2 McDoubles, 2 McChickens, and a 20-piece nugget.
Oh, wonderful.
With a large Coke.
Wow.
And I was sitting there eating it, dipping my burgers in the sweet and sour and ketchup and mayo on the McChicken to make like the special sauce. And I think I ate, I know I ate all of it, but I got through it all and I was like, I just ate 4 sandwiches and a 20-piece nugget. And what was disturbing was like, I also drank that entire Coke, which is a silo of soda.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, like, that's too much food. Like, that's entirely too much food. I mean, at the time it was like $11 worth of food. So I was like, but it was cheap. But I'm like, that's not good. Like, I have a problem, And so my solution in my, I know exercise, I know eating brain was I'm just going to order 1 less sandwich every time. I'm going to start with, instead of 4 sandwiches and 20 nuggets, I'll do 3 and 20 nuggets. And then I'll do 2 and 20 nuggets. And eventually I just capped off at 2 and 20 nuggets. To just make sure I'm not eating too much. That's still entirely too much food, by the way. But I mean, I was 24. No, I wasn't quite that old yet. I was 22. So it was like, drinking, eating. It was all wild. I was overweight. Like, I was a fat guy, but like, I could still do all the things. I didn't have joint pain. I didn't have constant shoulder pain. I didn't have chest palpitations. Until that stuff starts happening when you start cresting towards 30, like, I wish somebody had told me sooner that I should be going to the doctor regularly and like having frank conversations about what I was eating. But it's embarrassing, it's hard, especially when you've had weight problems your whole life. And, kids are vicious. Kids these days are a little different than kids were in the 90s and the 80s, but like, kids were vicious. Like, you had to deal with a lot of those psychological things as well. Now it's a little more supportive. Like, hey, you have trouble eating. There's probably something to do with that that's greater than you just being a glutton. I think really until very recently, the concept out there was still that like folks who are large are just like gluttonous, because we live in America and we overdo things. That's probably true to a point. I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, which I think we need to be, to a point, that's very true. Like, there is pleasure in the eating, and you enjoy it, so you do it. That's gluttony. But there's a lot more that goes into it. And that's part of what this journey on the Melt-Off is all about, is like, we didn't get here because we love Twinkies. We got here because we had grandmas that made food for us, and we relish in that nostalgia. We have these holidays that we treasure, that the time with family and, things like that. It's espoused to eating. And, certain flavors, certain smells trigger that hunger response for us that, sometimes you got to enjoy yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you have to know when to stop. And that's very hard to do for some people.
Yeah. And I like the enjoyment part, because I was doing way too much of enjoying of eating instead of just saving that for a special occasion.
Exactly.
Pizza 2 times a week, Buffalo Wild Wings once a week, going out to breakfast in that same week, hitting a Burger King on the way home from cleaning and eating a Whopper, a double Whopper with a large fry, but a Diet Coke, because that makes it better. And
keep that figure.
That's right. And I realized it more how bad it was before. And that, to your point, it's just not something you can do all the time and not think there's going to be repercussions for that. Because when I was younger, obviously, high school, college, where I was working and playing sports all the time and having McDonald's for breakfast, Burger King for lunch, and, hot dogs for dinner, I still, no weight. The weight was off, blood pressure was fine. I was also probably, doing 15,000 or 20,000 steps a day with playing sports and all those other pieces too. So just realizing that truly has to be for a special occasion. And like you said, using food for fuel, versus really truly enjoying it every single time, which I'm still enjoying food. Like now, I buy whole chickens. We probably have chicken 3 times a week. I cut it up, I bake it, so I'm eating baked chicken. I'll do steak one night. I just did salmon yesterday. There's still good flavor in that. Putting garlic on the salmon, some lemon. You can still, I think it's almost like readjusting your flavor profile a little bit.
Absolutely.
Where it was, what I was really getting from the fast food was salt. High salt types of tastes, which
Sugar.
again, I love. That's just, my mom's the same way. I think it's a little bit of a genetic thing. And just obviously adjusting that a little bit and trying to find a flavor profile that still kind of fits with that. And that's been a help too. I'm even thinking about trying carnivore at some point, and seeing how that goes. But then again, I have a salad every day. It's something, that's the other thing I try to do too, is I'll eat a salad first and then I'll have something trailing that, so that way the salad will fill me up a little bit. Because I don't know how, when you feel full, but for me, it's like right at the top of my stomach now. Like, it's the weirdest thing. It's like, oh, you're done eating. It's the weirdest. I've never had the feeling before. Like you said,
Yeah.
right? Never
it's
felt
weird.
that.
Yeah.
It is. And I think, I don't know if that's where some of my bloating was coming from too. I mean, it's just, even now looking down, I can't believe
Right?
how large I was before. Like, it never, and maybe it's because you see yourself every day. But I was actually in my principal's office for my summative, which I got an excellent on for the year, which I was very happy about.
Nice.
But we sat down and he goes, what have you been doing? And for all you people out there, if you're trying Zepbound or Ozempic, I've been waiting for this guy to ask me this, because he is a get up every morning at 4 a.m., meet with this thing called F3. They work out every day for 45 minutes. He's very careful with what he eats. And I was thinking, am I going to be embarrassed saying that I'm taking Zepbound? And you know what? I really put a lot of thought into it. I'm not. Because if that's what I need, and that's going to help me get well and get better along that journey, then that's what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to be embarrassed by it. And so I was like, hey, man, I'm taking Zepbound. I'm also intermittent fasting. It's helping me reach those goals. I'm also walking a lot more. But I go, and I was kind of defending myself, quite honestly. But I go, that's what I need. But it's gotten me to a point I haven't been in 20 years almost. So if that's what I have to do, and I think this is a good point for everyone that's out there, it's kind of like you having the surgery. You don't want to have the surgery. I mean, I don't. You know what I mean by that? Like, I'm sure
right.
years ago you're like, I'm gonna have bariatric surgery one day. I want to do this. You did what you had to do, and we've also had those discussions at different points too, about whether it's as fathers or as men or as hard workers. You do what you got to do.
Right.
There's no excuses. You just do it. And if that's what works for you, great. That's what's worked for me. Is being able to do this, and that's what I'm trying to tell people. It's not like I was taking it to lose an extra 10 pounds. It's because I had all these factors that were playing into it, and I had to do what I had to do to go on this journey. I do have a target weight. I don't know why I've picked this as my target weight, but I do want to get to 205. And it's something I've discussed with my doctor too. I said, I just feel for my frame that might be a good weight to be at. So we'll see what happens when I hit 205. If I feel like I have to lose more, I guess I'll just kind of make that judgment. I need to start exercising more. That has been a downside. I'm walking a lot, but I think I need to start doing some. I've got to get some lifting in or something. I have read that one of the side effects of these drugs is that you can start losing some muscle mass, and at 50, I don't want that to happen. So that's the one thing that I'm hoping on spring break. I want to try and build that habit over 10 days. I can just get into finding that rhythm of exercise and in terms of weights. Because I'm still getting 8 to 10,000 steps in every day. That's helped.
That's not bad.
Yeah. So that's my goal with that. Do
Absolutely.
you have a target weight? Or is it more what your body looks like?
For me, it's yeah. I talked with my nutritionist about this week because she like it's weird because I have multiple doctors that I'm always talking with, like, on this journey. There's a great support system. Mayo Clinic Health System has been amazing. I'm so glad I went with them for this program. All of my doctors are very supportive. I will say there's a little inconsistency with what they tell me I need to do or I should be doing sometimes.
Right.
Because I think everybody's got their opinion. And you brought up a good point that there should be no shame in this. Doing anything better for your health is always a good thing. Whether it's something small like walking more or something extreme because you have medical needs like what you or I are doing. No shame in it at all. I don't have it in me to wake up at 4 a.m. every day, work out, and eat only like supplements and protein and nothing else. For me, that's just it's not going to be possible to have that lifestyle. I can't do it. I've tried it, and that's the thing is like everybody's like, well, why don't you just try this first? I'm like, I've tried that. I've tried this. I've tried
Right.
that. All these different things. Like
that's a great point
literally-
about trying it. I've tried it. It doesn't work, man. Like that's the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I literally and Mayo is very stringent on this. Like, they are kind of like folks considering like plastic surgery. They want you to be absolutely certain that you're doing the right thing. So part of, and sometimes insurance companies require it. Mine really didn't exactly, but the doctors made it their requirement. They're like, we're going to talk to you about everything you've ever done, what you've tried, what you haven't been successful at, what you've had success at, to what degree. And I've covered this before on the show, but basically I tried everything and it just didn't work. So this is why I chose this path, partially because I needed something and partially because, it made the right sense for me. But when it came to, because you talk about this in therapy, which is a part of the requirement too, when it comes to like the number and the goal, my goal was health, life extension. I mean, that's what I really cared about, more so than looking a certain way or weighing a certain number, because the number's not super substantial. I mean, to a certain extent, it's like, muscle weighs more than fat. So as you're gaining muscle, you're gaining weight. You may still be losing fat at the same time. And your body is kind of redistributing stuff. So like you might not look all that different all that quickly. It takes time. I looked very different within a couple of months because there was a lot going on, a lot to lose.
Right.
But now I've kind of hit that area of like the next 30 pounds or so are probably going to be a little bit more difficult because, my body's kind of gotten used to or readjusted to where I'm at. And I wouldn't say I'm at like an unhealthy weight. 255 is not bad for a 6'3" male.
Yeah, you're also 6'3". I think I'm 5. I used to tell everyone I was 5'11 3/4. I'm probably like 5'10. But anyway, go ahead.
I used to tell everybody I was 6'4", but especially being heavy, like you lose a little height because your spine compresses. So I went down to, I think it's actually like 6'2 3/4. So I round up to 6'3".
Right.
But everybody I know who's around 6'3", 6'4", we're all about the same height, so I just call it that.
That's right. That's right.
But like the BMI chart it's based on basically fake science, so like you can't really trust that. It's not a bad barometer for like, if you're really heavy, like how far off you probably are. Like it gives you some idea, right? Like anything, it gets the conversation started. So for me, if I'm looking at like athletic level for my height, I want to say it's like 220, anywhere from 180 to 220 should be my goal range. So my surgeon, I think, wants me somewhere around like 180, which is like, I don't know that 180 on a 6'3" frame is going to look healthy or feel healthy. I don't know. I've never been, in my adult life anyway, 180. Like I think the last time I was 180 was like 5th grade or something. Like
Right.
I honestly could, but I was 6 foot tall in 5th grade. So like I was just a huge kid. Like I wasn't really even fat. I was maybe a little chubby, but like I was just a really big kid. And I was in school with other really big kids, but I never got into athletics because single parent, you know, I, I would say I wouldn't say we were poor. Like we just didn't have a lot of extra money, so I couldn't pay for all these events and things, and I didn't have anybody to get me to them. So I was like, you know, it wasn't an option for me to do healthy things. So I did a lot of video games, and
Yeah.
I played outside a lot. I rode my bike like miles and miles a day, you know, just fooling around with my friends. I would say screwing around more likely. Like we were, I don't know. We weren't fighting or doing drugs or drinking, but we were riding bike trails and going through people's yards and pissing off old people. Like, yeah, but I was an active kid. Like, I would go out and play for hours, and then I would also video game for hours. So, like, I had a decent balance as a kid, but, like, I also had a horrible diet because it was a cheap, poor diet. So that's kind of how things really started for me. I didn't know any better, really. And there wasn't as much information, I think, about nutrition and weight loss in the 90s as there is now. The science has come a long way. But I really struggle to come up with, like, what do I want to weigh? What do I want the scale to say? And for me, like, my biggest thing cosmetically was, like, I just want to be able to go into Target, pick a shirt off the shelf, and have it fit. I had gotten to a size where I couldn't do that. Like I had to go to the big and tall section in Kohl's, and usually the clearance big and tall. So like the sizes nobody wants, and those were the clothes I had to buy because like 4X, 3X. I'm also tall, so like I need tall sizes. So like I wear a lot of double XL shirts. I fit into a large right now, which is ridiculous. But they're too short. Extra large two, by and large, are too short. So I almost need the 2XL just for the length. They're comfortable. Like this right now, this is a 2XL shirt, and it fits. It's pretty loose, especially if I'm standing up. It fits loosely, um, but I'm so like broad shouldered and tall that like I really need a tall size, and they just don't make a lot of large tall or extra large tall shirts. Um, I haven't found hardly any of them anywhere. I could probably order them online pretty easy. Drop us some comments. You'd be like, "Hey, here's a link." Like, look, I just like to be able to go to my local store because I like to be in a place when I'm buying clothing. I don't like buying stuff online, um, clothing or shoe wise. But for me, that was more of the driver. Like the number on the scale. I don't want to say I don't care. Like when I hit 237, I was really proud of myself, but I was super dehydrated. Um, you know, I was feeling okay around 240, 245. Being up at 255 now, I've gained muscle. Um, but I do think I've gained some just weight, and I need to lose again and really work at it now because I've gotten pretty sedentary. This iron deficiency whooped my butt,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that, frankly, I've been drinking a lot more calories with the coffee. Like Starbucks is very close to my house. Those sugary Starbucks drinks are fantastic.
Yes, there.
I should focus on more black coffee. Not that I do a bunch of them, but like there were definitely days where I had two Starbucks drinks in a day. I don't usually get large. I usually get a medium. But just for the cost wise, like always go medium. But I think that was partially, because it's almost like drinking soda with the level of sugar and
Yeah.
fat in there. So I've cut that way back, and I definitely feel like well, I know I've lost weight just from that. Not a lot, but like a couple pounds. And as that continues to drop off, it's going to come back down pretty quickly. Um, and I would say within the span of a week or two, I'll probably be back in the mid 240s. But just getting back to exercise, I told my doc this week, like 220, I think feels right for me. I'm never going to be an athlete. And I'm okay with that. Frankly, I don't want that. Like, I just don't. It's too much pressure. I want to be able to play with my kids, mow my yard, do housework, and not be out of breath. And I'm not out of breath now, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I just want
yeah.
the stamina to do my life. And I also want to be like active. Like I want to go hiking. I love hiking. I just don't. And it's cold outside right now, so it's hard to get out and do the things outside I like. And the thing is, I've had no drop off in strength. If anything, I feel like I've gotten stronger. So I know I've gained some muscle, and that's okay. I don't have a six pack. Like if I really flex hard, I have the start to abs. I'm okay with that. Like
Oh yeah, I am too. Yeah.
if I relax, I have a little bit of a paunch, but
Yeah.
I'm 35. Like I got to be honest with myself. Like I'm not gonna have, Patrick Stewart's body. I might be out here
Or the
making it so.
Whoa, look at that. Love
Name
it.
drop. But I'm doing this for what I like to call the right reasons. I don't look at my head. I don't care what I look like. I really don't.
I hear
At the
you.
end of the day, I'm not out to impress anybody. I mean, I do still get a lot of attention from attractive women out and about and attractive fellas sometimes. And I'm real happy
love
with
you.
that. It irritates the piss out of my wife. But like I'm not fishing, I'm happily married. I have a family. I'm very content. I just want to be here when my grandkids come. I don't feel like I'm asking a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you brought. So the 205 number, I think I set that goal because I'm looking at the chart right now for BMI. I should be at the top level of a healthy weight, 172, and I think for my frame, I mean, you and I are my shoulders.
Yeah.
Something happened when I got into college because I used to be very slight, and my shoulders just got wider. So I think the 205, maybe it's just a number for me that makes, I don't know if it's gonna make me feel more accomplished. I don't know what it is, but to go to your point, I feel so good. I don't want to lose the feeling of how good I feel. I don't want to lose the feeling of feeling good.
There you
Or
go.
just the energy, especially when I find out when I fast, my energy level is a lot higher. Just reducing the amount of bad carbs that I take in. I think all those things have played into my mind has been clear, minus that one day we were talking about my blood sugar was low, and when I had
Yep.
COVID, I was having some of that brain fog. But never been thinking clearer or feeling like more on top of my game in a sense. And for me, it's this summer. I can't wait to get out there and play basketball with Nick because I think before the winter set in, I was that 252 trying to lumber around out there and hoping I wasn't going to fall and hurt myself. And now I'm looking forward to still only being able to jump this high off the ground, but not worrying about when I land, am I going to blow out my back or my knee or an ankle? Like I'm looking forward to feeling lighter and again, just feeling better. So I think a lot of stuff that we can continue to bring up as we go along this journey. I'm hoping, I know you said Becky might join us at some point. My buddy Keith definitely is going to want to jump in and start joining us. He's gone the carnivore route and has lost a lot of weight with that, along with exercising. He also has his master's degree in exercise science, so I think he'll add a nice little piece to this as well. But
Yeah.
I just, we've both said it, and I'm just going to reiterate it one more time. Do what you have to do, to your point, to be here longer, to my point of just feeling better. So whatever that takes, I hope that people out there find it and embrace it and run with it, and screw feeling guilty and all those other things or feeling weird. I'll go to the top of the mountains and shout that I'm on Zepbound because it's working for me. And I think that's extremely important, is to find that thing that works for you, embrace it, and use it.
Absolutely. I think that's a great closing thought. So everyone out there who subscribes here at Pending Rebrand, follow the Melt Off podcast. We're going to have more guests joining us in the future. We're going to have a lot more great stories to tell and hopefully some great successes, but we'll be honest and talk about our missteps as always. Come melt off with us next time. And until then, do what's right for you.